Hello everybody and welcome to Mini Lecture 3. We are talking about equal employment opportunity and discrimination. Today when we're talking about discrimination, we are discussing how discrimination can hide in plain sight, the pay techniques which are in which discrimination manifests. And in this mini lecture, we are talking about how the discrimination can be documented and presented in plain sight as normal, regular, or authentic. And often this is the most general or most obvious point at which discrimination occurs in the open. So, talking about performance appraisals. The main problem behind performance appraisals that allows for obvious discrimination or discrimination that goes undetected is the idea of subjectivity in performance appraisals. So, what do I mean by subjectivity? Let me give you some examples, and I think this will resonate with you. Everybody, every working professional has had a performance appraisal, and here are some places in the process of performance appraisal that are problematic. First, the ranking of employees is a place where is subjective and is a place where discrimination can occur. So perhaps a manager who has a particular bias might compare two employees, but the manager may not compare two of the same type of employees or two employees equally. So a bias may manifest in that the manager doing the performance appraisal, ranking someone may not be comfortable with women, may worry about looking like he is playing favorites or letting a particular a particular aspect of the ranking that he has some bias about manifest as a decreased performance appraisal. And this is an obvious thing, right? Well, not so fast, because when managers write up the performance of a particular individual, discrimination then is literally written into the record as the manager's subjective opinion. And there you have it, a performance appraisal that documents why a person is being paid less than another person. And discrimination and subjectivity that leads to discrimination can go multiple ways within that ranking process. So think about it. Do you like it when you are compared to someone else and then you are told that you need to act more like the number one performer, the number one seller, and because you don't, your performance is rated less, and therefore your bonus, either you do not get a bonus or you get a smaller bonus than the person you're being compared against. So you see the discrimination, the subjectivity, and how discrimination can pop up in justified in this format. So the second one is the idea of behaviorally adjusted rating system, or BARS, B-A-R-S. Again, you can find this in the performance appraisal chapter, but this is the type of rating scale that it is a rating scale that subjectively evaluates whether somebody meets, exceeds, or did not meet expected behaviors. Again, the subjectivity that is documented by the manager, again, it can be discrimination hidden in plain sight and justifying a difference for pay. Perhaps the comparison is made when specifically a good example is a employee who is responsible for children, and usually 90% of the time this is women. It doesn't mean men aren't, but more often it's women. And there may be some issues such as tardiness or number of absenteeism, not because the employee is failing, but because a child is sick, and that is a totally rational reason that that person may not attend attend work or be tardy more often than the individual she is being compared against. So when the manager is measuring these behaviors and assigning an exceeds, they are comparing you, or comparing the person who's being evaluated against, again, others, and ranking you or ranking the employee and documenting their subjective reasons why they do not exceed and get the bigger bonus. And it's rational and it seems normal, but yet we know it's discriminatory. The next performance appraisal process that I think is just a travesty is, because of the subjectivity, is what's called the 360-degree performance appraisal. That in itself is explanatory and is rife for subjectivity and discrimination. One simple example is a manager asking a peer to rate you. Okay, well, maybe one peer knows you're doing a great job. Maybe another peer thinks you're doing a poor job. Maybe another peer dislikes you. They're having a peer rate somebody is problematic. And when we look at this legally, we can look at a couple of points that give the person being discriminated against some evidence. First, let's look at this idea of the raters, the peer raters' observation. It's very possible that they're not trained in observation, so what they think they're seeing might be something completely different. So their observation is flawed. That invalidates the 360. Next, what about their memory? What if they don't remember the observation or the situation correctly? What if something happens between the time that they write down the observation and the time they make the rating? Again, memory and false memories, or incorrect memories even, not even intentionally incorrect memories, but incorrect memories, again, can invalidate the 360. So those are just two examples of how discrimination can manifest within that. And then let's look at the last category, management by objective. This again is a situation where managers look not at comparing one person against another, but they look at comparing the attainment of objectives of measurement against some standard, and they do not necessarily have to provide the rationale for rating somebody on meeting or not meeting an objective, especially if that objective or that metric is not numerical. So the objective may be to build teamwork. Well, that is problematic because, again, the rater is being subjective about those objectives. And that's where in the pay model, go back and look at the pay model, now we're looking at the objectives and we're looking at fairness, equity, compliance. And so you see how those can be problematic. Now, how do we ameliorate or eliminate, just a second here, I have to change something. So how do we ameliorate or eliminate discrimination? You know, the performance appraisal process is what it is, and the law under compliance and equal opportunity does not eliminate or specifically mandate that a performance appraisal process like the ones I've just mentioned to you must be eliminated or not used. So that means it's up to us as HR managers or executives, and also I think the employees, to hold the managers and executives accountable. The way to ameliorate that is primarily three things, and that is giving training on how to use the performance appraisal process, use it equitably, and avoid discrimination by subjectivity. Two is that every performance appraisal is reviewed and is examined for quality control to make sure that the subjectivity or discrimination is not hiding in plain sight. And three, accountability. And that accountability means under compliance that if somebody has established a pattern of subjectively rating all women lower than any of the men, the entire group of women then can be found to have a pattern of lower ratings, and that means that there is discrimination which can be picked up by the review, and that person who has done the reviews needs to be held accountable. It can be through a court case, it can be through a slap on the hand or a memo or a statement of reprimand. It can go many ways, but accountability is important. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the wrap-up of Module 5, Concepts, and the end of this mini lecture where we have looked at sources of subjectivity and discrimination and a couple of suggestions on how those might be remediated in the performance appraisal process. Thank you for tuning in.